What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Game Week 5 deadline stream. The international break is over, another deadline, another stream. FPL is back. We are back. Super excited to be here. Super happy to be kind of back into the FPL, frame because I think it's been a long break. It feels like it's been some time since the actual football or the Premier League football was coming. So super excited. Welcome to the deadline stream. I am kind of fretting in terms of my transfers. I've made my one free transfer and I have kind of an hour or so to, calm down my nerves, and please help me do that as well. Please feel free to ask any questions, anything that you want to check, anything that you want to know in terms of any press conferences. We'll of course keep an eye on any leaks or any information. Of course, leaks are now a part of the FPL space. So we'll keep an eye on those things. We'll also kind of help you navigate through any questions, etc., that you have for Game Week 5 or even for beyond. And I think it's going to be an interesting and very exciting stream. Let's hope that we do not get a lot of crazy information just right before the deadline, so we can kind of have a like a simple or a very nice and breezy sort of a stream. But yeah, of course, looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking to all of you guys. Looking forward to FPL in general. And yeah, that's where I am. In terms of my team, if you see on the screen, I have basically taken out Foden. So I had Foden in my team from last week. Last week, in fact, let's just address it before we kind of get into the questions and Game Week 5 in general. It was a horror show. A lot of things that could go wrong went wrong. Yes, we did go aggressive in terms of going with the Sterling, going with the Foden. Those moves didn't kind of pan out, but it's very early to sort of knee jerk, sort of think about what player is not working or working for by just looking at 1 week of information, by just looking at 1 week of performance and data in general. So I think we're still kind of easing into the FPL season. It's again too early to kind of think that now Son is absolutely going to smash it this week, etc. May or may not happen. That's absolutely the case. But let's see what happens with Son. So my transfer was Foden to Son. I took out Foden. I just feel that maybe the potential with Foden is not as high. I mean, I'm not saying the Foden is a bad pick altogether, and suddenly, we all start hating on Foden. It's absolutely not that. I still feel the loss of KDB is kind of hurting Man City, where maybe when they were, let's say scoring 5 or 6 goals, maybe 4 goals on an average in general, now they'll probably be scoring about 2 to 3 goals, unless we see some sort of a, personality, some sort of a player in that Man City lineup who now becomes, the creator who can actually supply Haaland. Because if Haaland gets the supply, if he gets the ball, he's absolutely going to smash it. He's absolutely going to score. And I have no qualms or no doubts about the fact that Haaland is probably not going to have, another good season. So there is no doubt in that regard. But I just feel the supply line to Haaland is probably, a bit unknown right now. So, and I'm not really feeling Foden, especially when he's playing on that left wing. I'm not really feeling him. His potential doesn't really look as high as, let's say, like a Son, for example. Now, Son also has a caveat, because Son, if he's playing out wide, his potential again is not maybe that good or that high. But especially when he's playing in a number 9 role, which is a huge debate in the FPL community right now, because maybe Johnson can play in that number 9 role. Maybe Richarlison can play. I mean, no disrespect to Richarlison, but even if he doesn't, or even if he plays, it hardly matters because he's not really doing anything. But Son has that potential when he's playing that number 9 role, when he's playing that striker sort of a position. He's of course playing in an out of position role because he's listed as a midfielder and he's scoring. Let's say if he does score a lot of goals like he did in one of the earlier seasons, I think he could be massive. And I think this week, I know a lot of people have kind of knee-jerked, maybe me, myself included, in terms of getting in Son. Yes, he could have a good fixture. I mean, we can look at this situation from a couple of angles, right? We can look at the situation from one angle where we say that Sheffield United is probably going to play low block. I know there's a lot of bogus conversations happening on Twitter, a lot of claims happening that, teams find it difficult to play against low block teams. Maybe Man City is the only team who can actually find a solution against a low block team. Now, that may or may not happen with the Tottenham, but we have to kind of change our expectations when you're looking at the Tottenham team. It's not the Tottenham team of last year. They don't have Harry Kane. They have a creator called James Maddison, who's really, doing all the good things that you would expect a number 10 or a creative midfielder to, attacking midfielder to do. Then we have the likes of Son, etc., who can absolutely smash it when, we're talking about scoring goals. They have Johnson as well. There could be a chance where Johnson now comes into that number 9 role. Though, I mean, he's not really done that great, especially when playing as a number 9 over his, previous teams. but that is definitely a possibility. So there are still some unknowns. There's still, a lot of information which is probably being interpreted in a different way, where you might think that, maybe Son is not a great option. I mean, doubling up on Son and Madison before they play, the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool looks absolutely crazy, right? But that crazy things or crazier things have happened in FPL, and I think it could be a very, very interesting deadline. It could be a very interesting week because we get a lot of information, considering the fact that there's Europe as well. I mean, a lot of people are not really counting that equation or that, element into the whole equation. Europe or Champions League or Europa League, basically the European games are starting now. So we'll get an idea in terms of which players are being preferred in those European competitions, which players are probably going to play in the Premier League, whether there's going to be some rotation or maybe massive rotation with the assets, with the players that we think are good FPL options. So I think all that information is also kind of important in terms of making, the next set of decisions. Then of course there are different fixtures, different teams who are having some sort of a fixture swing or a good fixture swing from game weeks 8 to 10. So there's a good window of wildcard as well. In case if you have not wildcard, I think that's a great window to wildcard. Plus, by that time, by game week 8 to 10, we'll also have some more information in terms of whether Son is playing number 9, whether Tottenham is a good team, still a good attacking side, especially against the tougher teams. Can we really trust the likes of Son, trust the likes of Madison? What's happening with the Brighton options? Are Brighton ever going to keep clean sheets? I mean, who knows what the hell is going to happen there? But at least we'll have some idea. We'll have some information about Chelsea options, Man United players, Arsenal midfielders. So there are a lot of unknowns right now where we are all kind of making different assumptions. And I think those comms or those situations will kind of get better for us. So that's where I am. That's where my transfer is. I mean, I still don't feel it's a knee jerky transfer because I generally think Son could do really, really well. But of course, it's very positional dependent because the first 3 fixtures which he played out wide, he's not really done much. I mean, when you look at his XGI numbers, when you look at his returns, it's absolutely nothing, right? So let's see what happens there. Let's hope and assume that Son can absolutely smash it. And we've kind of gotten a little bit early. Of course, there are a lot of transfers for Son that have happened this week, but we're still a little bit early on the ship where we are getting players or we are getting something like a Son a little earlier and trying to get some advantage there. People who don't rate Darwin Núñez, I mean, Darwin Núñez is a very tricky player, right? I mean, I'm not really comparing him to a Werner at all. And I still felt that there were a lot of comparisons last season where because of his finishing, because of how he was playing, he was really, really compared to Werner by a lot of pundits as well. So that was very intriguing. But I think this could be a good season for him. This could be a breakout season for him. He's kind of had time to settle in the Premier League. He's kind of had time to settle in Klopp's system. And I think he could be a really, really good player. So yes, we still have to wait for him to get regular 90 minutes or majority minutes. That could be a bit tricky because of the fact that Liverpool have options like a Jota, for example, who can slot into his position. Liverpool also have a Gakpo, for example, if let's say if they are playing in that sort of a formation or a different sort of a position, I think Gakpo could also fit in. So there are some elements which could give some competition to Darwin Núñez, but I still feel Darwin Núñez, I mean, even last season, right? Whenever he played, yes, he got injured. Yes, there were performances where he came from the bench, etc., where he didn't give us those 90 minutes. But he's always looked like a player who will be heavily involved. He's always looked like a player who will do something when he's on the pitch, whether he's getting an assist, whether he's taking a shot, whether he's scoring a goal. He'll always be very heavily involved. So I think that's probably going to continue. And I think that will, of course, result in more goals, more assists. Yes, provided that he gets those additional minutes or maybe closer to 90 minutes, he gets those starts. I think he could be a really, really good option. A lot of people were kind of cold on him at the start. Then it kind of got a little hotter on Darwin Núñez. Now, again, because of the fact that there's Alvarez, there is Visa, there is the Jackson hype that happened. Of course, Jackson owners have not been rewarded yet, but there will be a time where Jackson will get those goals, will finish those chances because he is getting a lot of those big chances. It's just that he's not finishing those big chances, and that is the reason you see his numbers not that great, right? That could definitely change. I mean, a couple of hauls, a couple of maybe 10, 12, 15 pointers, and this might be a very different conversation where everybody's now again forgetting somebody like a Darwin Núñez and then focusing back on a Jackson. So I think he just needs those couple of hauls. If he gets those, I think his ownership is even gonna get higher. So I think looking forward to that as well. Looking forward to see, because I generally feel that Chelsea have the right kegs, have the right spots or pieces in play. It just have to come, it just has to come together and they have to gel together as a team. And I think they will do really, really well. So hoping and let's see what happens with the Jackson situation. I think how about Isak? I think Isak is definitely going to be number one. I personally don't feel, considering the fact that Newcastle also has Champions League, and look at that absolutely crazy group that they have in the Champions League. It's the group of death. I mean, I have not really seen a much more tougher group. If there is, do let me know, and we'll be very happy to kind of get that trivia out of the way. But I think I have personally not seen a more tougher group, which is basically the group of death. And I think every match is like, it's, I mean, you kind of expect Newcastle to not do that great, not get that result, and maybe get out of the Champions League so that they can focus on the Premier League. Of course, from an FPL point of view, that really makes a lot of sense because they have a good run of fixtures coming up. A lot of people are kind of debating where to go for a defender or not, but the real conversation is around the attackers, because midfield, nobody is showing their hands up. We have the likes of Isak and Wilson, who are two options, legit options. I still feel Wilson doesn't have the legs to play 90 minutes in and out week on week, and I think he's gonna get some appearances. He may start. There is a possible situation, and hear me out here. There is a possible situation where maybe somebody like an Isak, gets those more trickier games in the Champions League. Yes, you could say that maybe he's not that experienced, etc. And maybe Wilson is a much cooler head. He's a much more wiser head, etc. He has more experience. That can absolutely happen. But I just don't see Wilson having the legs against teams like PSG, Dortmund, AC Milan. I just don't see that. So I have a feeling that it's probably going to be Isak who's going to start, majority games in the Champions League. There is the possibility that could trickle down and that could affect maybe a Wilson starting, games in the Premier League. And again, it's very early to kind of say what will happen with Newcastle, because I mean, from the looks of it, you will probably expect Newcastle to probably, go out of the Champions League group and then come back into the Premier League. If that happens, then I don't see a problem there, because then Isak is probably going to start most games. Unless they are playing two up top together, I don't see a situation where Isak is, benched. Maybe an odd game he's benched, maybe a double game week, etc., where, there's a short turnaround time. Maybe around Christmas, we might see some rotation, etc. But I just feel that he is the better option to go for. He is the forward to go for. Wilson has a tendency to come from the bench, score some points, get goals, and I think that is where his strength lies now. And I think Eddie Howe has to kind of accept that. So maybe we see Wilson starting a couple of games here and there, especially in those Champions League weeks. That could absolutely happen. We might even see Isak starting in those Champions League games, so, getting subbed early, and then Wilson coming from the bench, and then Isak again starting those Premier League games at the weekend. So that's a high possibility as well. Still very early to kind of call out the exact prediction there, but I personally think that's probably going to happen. But I think Isak is going to be a good option. It's just that with those Champions League games, I'm still not considering him yet, because there are options that we can go for. There is Darwin Núñez. There is Watkins, who has a great run of fixtures now. There is Alvarez as well. If we see Alvarez starting majority games in the Premier League, irrespective of whatever happens in the Champions League, I think Alvarez with that value could be a really, really good pick as well. So there are options which kind of, makes me think that Isak is not really a heavy must-buy option at the moment. But yeah, definitely on the watch list, definitely looking forward to seeing what happens with Newcastle in the Champions League, and then that's where we can, kind of take a call whether to go for him or not. Is Saka to Son a good move? I think Saka against Everton looks like a good option. It's an away fixture for Arsenal. You can maybe argue that Arsenal's probably not going to be as strong as they are at the Emirates. But it just feels that Arsenal is still a good attacking team. Saka is a very important element in that attack. He's also supposedly on penalties. I don't think so Odegaard is going to be on pens. So I think he's a good option. I personally don't think so it's a must sell, because anyways, there is a certain element of risk involved with the Son. Yes, there's high upside. I will definitely say that Son, if you compare Son and Saka side by side, I think Son has a much higher upside. You have somebody like a Son who can give you 20 points, score a hat trick. I think that Son is also going to be on pens. So maybe that pens argument kind of, negates itself. Saka just doesn't feel like a player who's gonna, give you those 15, 20, 25 pointer hauls. I mean, 25 is way out there, but in general, 7 to 8 points, 10 points, I get that, but maybe not beyond that. So in terms of explosivity, I think Son is the better option to go for. With somebody like a Saka as well, there is Martinelli. I mean, Trossard, etc., hasn't really gotten those minutes. Havertz also, I mean, he's not really been an FPL option so far, but that could absolutely change. There's Odegaard as well. Then there's Gabriel Jesus, who's coming back into the team. So there are a lot of players who could share those attacking returns, which may not happen with the Tottenham team, considering that Johnson is a sort of an unknown quantity in that Tottenham team. We have Richarlison, who's not really scoring. I mean, I don't remember the last time he actually scored a goal in the league for Tottenham. So I think Son in general just looks like a better pick, but doing Saka to Son logically doesn't really make sense because you are replacing a good player. And again, that's probably going to happen a lot this season where you are replacing a good player for another good option. So it could happen that a Saka could really score this week and Son just blanks, right? So that could absolutely happen if you're okay with the risk. If you're okay with Son, playing against Liverpool, Arsenal, and if you're confident in that, absolutely go for it. If you feel that you maybe already have Madison and you don't want Son, or it's like an extra player, Tottenham player against those trickier fixtures in the next two games after game week 5, then maybe just wait for a week. If he does really well, you can even bring him against a Liverpool or an Arsenal team. So logically, it doesn't make sense because you are taking out a good player. You're getting a good player, but then it could go either way. It could also happen where Saka scores, let's say Saka, you keep Saka, he scores, and Son blanks, then you maybe get lucky, or the other way around as well. So logically, it doesn't make sense. There is risk involved. If you're okay with the risk, absolutely go with it because he's a high upside player, and there's a high chance that he can outscore Saka. Considering the wildcard in game week 10, Son fixtures better than Saka. I mean, yeah. Fixtures, I mean, yes, you have to kind of play the fixtures as well. In terms of looking at Tottenham as well, right? I mean, we have to kind of temper our expectations in terms of when we are seeing, Tottenham as an attack. I think there is a lot that has changed with Tottenham. Yes, they're not playing in the same way where they were or they used to with a Harry Kane in their team, and I think that will definitely change a lot. But in general, I think even against the trickier teams, right? Even against an Arsenal, for example, even against a Liverpool, for example, I think somebody like a Tottenham, somebody like a Son, for example, could do really, really well because when we look at Spurs fixtures, Sheffield at home is a good game. Then they have Arsenal, Liverpool, Luton, Fulham. Until game week 10, it's Crystal Palace. So they're good fixtures. They're especially against Luton, Fulham. I mean, those two teams are very, very leaky. They are conceding a lot of XGC. They are conceding a lot of goals. They're not keeping clean sheets, and I don't expect them to keep clean sheets. So I think those are two really, really good fixtures. When we look at Arsenal, there is Tottenham again. I'm not really rating the Tottenham defense very highly. Yes, there are a couple of defenders who've done well. Tottenham as an attack has done well, but they're still, they look like they will concede goals. There's Everton, which is again could be a tricky game because Everton might just shut up shop and might just want to keep it very tight. So it's a home game for Everton, and if they kind of play in that negative space or negative mind frame, that may not be liked by the board, by the fans, etc. And there could be a lot of media speculation around all of that, and we've already seen that with Everton happening in the past. So if Everton try to go for it, there is definitely a lot of scope for Arsenal to exploit those spaces, and then somebody like a Saka, Gabriel Jesus, etc. to do really, really well. It kind of depends on that game state. Tottenham, Bournemouth, Man City, Chelsea. I mean, Man City also, right? Yes, they still look like the best defense, but they can definitely concede goals. So the fixtures for Saka are definitely trickier. And I just feel over the next 5-6 game weeks, I think Son should outscore Saka, and that was also one of my logic to kind of bring in a Son over, not a Saka, but a different option, but a Foden, because of course there was a certain element of the Champions League rotation, etc., also involved. But I think, personally, I think Son will or should outscore Saka in the next 4 to 5 game weeks. Bruno, Rashford, and Watkins to Son and Alvarez. I mean, high upside picks both. But again, I mean, a lot of people are saying that, Rashford, and I also feel where, let's say, Højlund, for example, if he's now in the starting 11, it's very, very early to, call out on that 20-minute performance and say that Højlund is totally going to revamp the Man United attack. I'm very wary of that. But it just feels with Højlund, whatever or however he plays, there will be a proper number 9, right? So in that scenario, Rashford doesn't have to play in that striker role, which where he's anyways not very effective. He shifts down to the left. That really brings the best out of him, and he should do really really well. With Bruno, it's a tricky situation because if Bruno plays on the right, from an FPL point of view, may or may not be that good. I don't think so. There's a definite conclusion there. With the likes of Amrabat also out right now, maybe Bruno is now playing in a slightly deeper role. Whatever has happened so far, Bruno has still played really well. He's created a lot of chances, which he anyways does, and I think that's still going to continue. So taking out Bruno Rashford, even against Brighton, I know Brighton is Brighton, and they're playing in Europe and all that jazz. But from a defensive point of view, Brighton have, I think that they're the fourth worst team for XGC, basically expected goals conceded. They are conceding a lot of chances. They are conceding goals. Estupinian in general looks good, but Estupinian, we are kind of considering him as an attacker, right? We're not really depending on Estupinian or a dunk for clean sheets at the moment. So I think this week it's a bit tricky. Even Watkins against Crystal Palace, and Watkins in general, it depends on how you're looking at FPL, and Watkins is a pick, right? If you're looking to hold him, let's say if you want to hold him for slightly long term, I think it's better to hold him right now and not change him or move him out to a different option, because you'll be basically spending another transfer. Let's say if Watkins does really well and you want to get him back, you're basically spending one more transfer. In fact, two transfers. One is to take out Watkins, and the other one is to get back Watkins. So it possibly doesn't really make a lot of sense. But and Alvarez again, I'm a little wary of Alvarez as well because of the fact that there's Champions League starting. So I'll probably just wait for this week. I'll see what's happening in the Champions League. Watkins against Crystal Palace in isolation is an absolutely fine player to hold, or a good potential player. And I think I don't have to make that Alvarez move. I personally don't think Alvarez move is required. You can possibly just save those two transfers. Pinnock to Botman will give you that Newcastle defender option. So that is definitely an option. But yeah, I mean, and I'm expecting Botman, even if he maybe, let's say, by chance doesn't start this week or doesn't, feature for 90 minutes, he is going to be a regular feature because he was one of Newcastle's better defenders last season. So I expect him to be back in that lineup. So I think doing that move is fine if you really have to do. Otherwise, I'm okay saving the free transfer as well, because as I said earlier, right, you are kind of taking out two players, let's say a Bruno or Rashford or whosoever, and a Watkins, and then getting into good options. So it could go your way, absolutely, but it could also backfire. So I think saving is fine here. You have Udogi, Madison already, and Foden, and 2 million in the bank. Is it good if I triple up on Spurs and bring in Son? Again, it depends on how you're looking at Son or the Tottenham attack or the Tottenham team in general, right? There is no denying that the Arsenal fixture and the Liverpool fixture are going to be tricky fixtures. I mean, they're going to be tough fixtures. It may be a high scoring game, considering that Tottenham or Spurs are generally now an attack minded team. They're not going to sit back. They're not going to defend. They're not going to defend those 1-0 Conte leads or how Mourinho used to play. So they're not going to play like that. They're going to go all out. They're going to outscore the opposition, or at least try to outscore them. And that just spells good for their attackers and for us FPL managers, because of the fact that, we can target those players even against the trickier oppositions. So I think I personally don't see a problem with tripling up on Spurs, because of the fact that we have to change our expectations, shift our idea of thinking about how we are thinking about Spurs. They're not the Spurs of old. They're not the Spurs of last season. They're not the Spurs with Harry Kane in it. They have a James Maddison. They have a Son, etc. And it's a very different dynamic at the moment. The team is looking on the up. The team is looking good. They have a good manager who's quite motivating, who's come out in the press, spoken about how the players, about mental health in general. It's just a good atmosphere. And I think even against Richarlison, right? Even for Richarlison, sorry, I think they will try to get the best out of him in whatever way they can, right? So I think all good things in Tottenham happening right now, and I think it is okay to back them and basically triple up, even if it's getting in a Son, Madison, and Udogi. I don't see a problem with it. Is Rasmus Højlund a good punt? I think he's a great punt. I myself was thinking about him, but I don't want to let go of Watkins just yet. Now, there could be a chance where maybe he replaces Watkins, in the coming weeks. But again, seeing him for 20 minutes, of course, I was super, super excited seeing him as a United fan. but I still want to see a bit more from him. I still want to understand how United are, playing. There's a lot of trouble off the pitch when it comes to Man United. Now, whether that is translating on the pitch or not, we still do not know that. But Holland looked like, that he's fit into the whole United setup very easily and very very nicely. Yes, Arsenal was a very different opposition. There will be a lot of different teams. Brighton also could be a bit similar to Arsenal, but there'll be oppositions like, let's say, like a Sheffield, for example, like an Everton, for example, like a like a Bournemouth, for example. I mean, those would be teams where you would expect them to sit back, defend, and then we'll kind of understand what's happening with Hoyland. Right now, he looks like a good punt, but with only 20 minutes of information, that's the only assumption, or that's the only conclusion that you can make out. Once we have certain more information, once we have more idea about how Rashford is lining up, what impact is Rashford kind of having on Hoyland, how is Bruno, if at all, feeding to Hoyland? I think those are very important kegs that we have to understand. We have to take away from this game week, next game week, provided again that if Hoyland starts. But I think right now, with whatever information, with those 20 minutes of information, I can only say that he's a punt. May or may not go well, may not even start this week. But I think it just need more information there. That's about it. Gabriel Estupinian, who to start? I think if I'm starting one, Estupinian is good because of the fact that he will provide, good attacking threat. I mean, can Everton score against Arsenal? I mean, they can, of course, and Arsenal's defense also looked okay. I mean, not that great, and they look like, they can concede goals. So it's not like airtight or, super tight, where they will keep things very very tight at the back. But I think it depends on how you are looking at your defenders or your defense in general, right? Estupinian against United, the matchup is really good. United have defensive troubles, and Brighton have looked really good in attack, right? And Estupinian has been a very, very important part of it. He's created a lot of big chances. He's taking shots. There is assist potential. There is goal potential. I mean, goal scoring potential, etc. Whether he's a doubt, etc., we'll just quickly check that as well. But I mean, in general, what we've seen so far in terms of him being a good asset, I think he's a good option. But yeah, we'll quickly check. I've personally not seen anything in terms of Estupinian being a doubt, but yeah, I mean, logically it makes more sense to. I mean, let's say if we do not even consider the news in terms of him being a doubt, etc., though that is a very very important element. I just feel Gabriel is the safer move. There is clean sheet potential. You can't really expect a lot of attacking threat from Gabriel, but you're probably going to get those 6 save points or save points, wherein Estupinian may not be that great from a clean sheet perspective. I would still say if Estupinian is a doubt, I personally don't see him starting or even coming from the bench. So I think I'm not expecting Brighton to keep a clean sheet, but yes, from a attacking threat point of view, I think there could be some potential, though it's still a bit risky. So in case if you want to go absolutely safe, you go Gabriel and you depend on those clean sheet points. Maybe if you get something from an attacking threat or from an attacking return, in terms of an attacking return, I think that could be really really lucky. So logical is to basically play Gabriel in case if and I'll just confirm that as well in terms of his injury or his doubt, etc. But I think if you're going a bit risky, going a bit aggressive, then Estupinian is okay. Otherwise, Gabriel is fine. Should I bench Jackson, start Estupinian? I personally won't bench Jackson. I think Estupinian is attacking, but Jackson is playing as a striker. Yes, he's not finished his chances. Yes, he's not gotten those goals, gotten those points, because if he had probably gotten a haul, maybe 2 hauls more than what he has right now, I think you wouldn't be asking that question. So I think Jackson, with the underlying numbers that he has, I think he's a good option. There is a lot of potential in him. He will still get those big chances. He just has to finish those, whether that happens against Bournemouth or not. First of all, he has to get those big chances. If that happens and if he finishes, I think there's a massive or a monster haul coming this week. So I think I personally won't. If I'm benching one of the options here, I'll probably bench an Estupinian. Considering that he's facing Man United, I'm not expecting him to keep a clean sheet. I'm expecting United to score. And I think that's why in general, I would always prefer the attacker over the defender. So I'll start Jackson and I'll bench Estupinian. Start Botman and Estupinian. So Botman's facing Brentford, who've looked okay in attack. Mbeumo has looked really good. He has penalties. There could always be a dodgy penalty, and you could get unlucky with that clean sheet that you probably have at that moment. But I think again, safer like Gabriel, right? Like safer option, logical option is to start Botman over an Estupinian. In case if you want to take a bit of a risk, in case if you want to go slightly more aggressive, then it makes more sense to start Estupinian over Botman. But I think in most cases, I'll probably start the likes of Botman, Gabriel, etc. over an Estupinian here. Change of hairstyle again. I mean, yeah, those long hair were difficult to maintain, so had to chop them off, cut them off. Not very happy about it, but it just was getting a bit tricky and difficult to maintain that amount of hair. So yeah, just cut them off. Turner, Chilwell, Saliba, Udogi, Rashford, Saka, Bruno Sterling, Mbeumo, Jackson, Haaland. Team looks decent. Pickford, Archer, Estupinian, Kabore. Bench is also decent. One free transfer, 1.9 million in the bank. Should I roll or what would you recommend? So you have Chilwell, Saliba, Udogi, perfectly fine defense. Rashford, Saka, Bruno Sterling, absolutely fine, and Mbeumo as well. I don't see a transfer here. Yes, you do not have a Spurs asset. So in case if you want to bring in a Spurs asset, the issue or my issue here is who will you replace this week, right? Because if you want to kind of take off a little bit from the Man United players that you have, you can maybe take out one of Rashford, Bruno. Which one to take out? I'll probably take out Bruno right now. But I just feel against Brighton, I personally won't do it. Yes, there could be some loss in terms of ranks, in terms of points. With let's say if Tottenham go absolutely massive and absolutely crazy, right? That's one scenario where they score 3 or 4 or 5 goals, and players like Maddison get an assist, couple of assists, goal. Maybe Son gets a couple of goals in. So that is where you might lose out on points. But I think, and in case if you're afraid of that, in case if you feel that you want to cover that off, take out one of Rashford or Bruno. I will say probably Bruno. But it's not a necessary move to make. It's probably a bit defensive because you're trying to kind of cover off the Tottenham attack. But I'm absolutely fine rolling this week. Yes, you might just lose out on certain points ranks, but you can cover them off next week with maybe a new player emerging. Maybe you can jump on that particular player a lot earlier than the other FPL managers, and I think that should also be fine. So I don't necessarily see a transfer here. You can absolutely roll. But in case if you want to cover off that Tottenham threat, I mean, you can get in one of Maddison or Son. Right now, the more explosive or the higher upside pick looks like Son. Maddison is your safe, gravy option who's probably giving you those 8 to 10 points week in, week out. And I think he's going to be a safe option throughout the season. Excuse me. Will Gabriel start? I think so. I think he should start. But with Gabriel, we've already seen when we're expecting him to start, he doesn't start, comes off from the bench for those 5, 10, 15 minutes and just gives us that, solitary 1 point. In case if you do not want to deal with that, either bench him or just change him or just let him be, because I see the higher upside is with the attackers at the moment, midfielders, even strikers right now, apart from Haaland. I think there's a lot of upside that you can gain, which may not be the case with defenders at the moment. So I think, just sticking with Gabriel is also absolutely fine. Chelsea double defense is a risk or a good call. Right now, it looks like an okay call in terms of they will be starting. I'm assuming that you have a Gusto, for example, and then you have a Chilwell. I think Gusto is also fine for the moment because James is still away from first team football, still away from his minutes in the Premier League, and I think right now having Gusto is absolutely okay. That is from a starting perspective and your players getting minutes perspective, whether they're going to keep clean sheets, because Chelsea is still a very erratic team. You see some really nice performances, then you see some off performances. You see them keeping a clean sheet, then you see them conceding 2 or 3 goals against a bottom team. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen with Chelsea at the moment. If they can, again, there's a big if here, but if they can keep it tight at the back, irrespective of whether their defenders get any attacking returns or not, I think double defense could be really, really good. But right now, if I'm going for a double defense, I'll probably look at the Newcastle defense. I'll start investing in the Newcastle defense because their numbers are still decent. Yes, Their first four fixtures have been very, very tough, very tricky. But I think it's going to improve. Their defensive performances will improve. They are generally a team who will keep clean sheets. And I think if I'm doubling up on one defense at the moment, a lot of people would have said Man City, for example, but I just don't see those two nailed options in the Man City defense, giving me those 6 pointers week in, week out, which I can possibly see with the Newcastle team. So Chelsea double defense is risky for sure. It could be a good call if they can keep it tight at the back. Right now, it's looking a bit tricky. Is Nunes a good option? I think he's a great option. I mentioned earlier in the stream, I think he's a good pick. He's a high upside pick. There's a lot of potential with Nunes. He is going to get a lot of chances. I think he's going to have a better FPL season in general from as compared to last season. And I think if we are looking at differential options, I think Nunes is right up there. Saving transfers makes more sense in case if you do not have, in case if you don't have an urgent mistake to correct or an urgent need to make a transfer, or you maybe are not trying to cover off Son, Madison, and the likes. I think saving is absolutely fine because right now also we just have about 4 weeks of information, right? We are all kind of making these concoctions where we are saying this player is not going to do well, that player is not going to do well. I'm sitting here and telling you all of that stuff. You also have some 100 thoughts in your head, but we do not have the truth is that we do not have enough information, and we do not have a lot of information in terms of whether we can use that particular info and then make those right calls. A little later in the season, yes, by game week 10, 12, we've understood patterns, we've understood teams, we've understood things about certain players and certain teams. And I think that is when we can actually make those deductions or assumptions or, conclusions. Right now, again, it's all in the air, and, it depends on how you are looking at the game and how you're looking at teams and players in general. Ezra Martinelli out for Madison. I think I'll probably take out Martinelli. I'm assuming you may have Saka here. In case if you don't, there, because of the fact that there's so many options in midfield, I think you can get value from other players. And I think you can take out, you can hold Eze for a couple of weeks, see him out again, change him to a different option. But I think taking out Martinelli right now is absolutely fine. I don't see the same threat in Martinelli as someone like a Saka or a Gabriel Jesus. I think those are better FPL options from the Arsenal team. So I think I'm okay taking him out for Madison. Haaland or Madison captain? I think for me, it's the question about Haaland or Son captain, because Madison, I understand that there is potential in Madison and he can do really, really well, but he doesn't look like a player who's, very high ceiling. He doesn't look like a player who will give you 15, 20 points, even against slightly easier, oppositions. Yes, he's done that in the past. And there's just what I have it in my head. I just feel Son, with his goal threat, with his elite finishing, I think could be a much better option. So the debate in my head is between Haaland or Son. I think between Haaland or Madison, I'll definitely choose Haaland. West Ham, it could be a tricky game, but West Ham have looked very leaky. They are conceding a lot of shots, and even if it's an away game for Man City, even if they don't have a creator called KDB in their team, I still feel if the right balls go to Haaland, I think he can absolutely score and, again, create a mockery of his FPL potential. Against any team, I think there is potential in Haaland to score a hat-trick. And going against Haaland is definitely risky. If I'm probably taking that risk, I'll probably, give myself a chance to go even more aggressive and probably double down on the differential advantage that Son is giving me right now. But between Madison or Haaland, I think it's Haaland for me. Estupin has doubt. We'll just quickly check that as well. I haven't seen it anywhere. Yeah, I haven't because I was checking Twitter before getting onto the stream this morning as well. I haven't looked at it. I haven't seen it. In case if you have a link or some source, please feel free to add that in the chat as well. We'll quickly check that. Is Henry good? Don't see any clean sheet. Henry is good from an attacking sense, but I'm again not really seeing any clean sheets from him in the near future. In case if you not change him, Udogi is a good option. You can definitely go with him. You can go. You can chance your arm and maybe look at a Luton option. I know it's absolutely crazy when you think about having a Luton defender because they're not going to keep clean sheets. They have a double coming. Maybe for that particular week, you can go aggressive, take a chance. Otherwise, you go Udogi. In case if you're looking for a differential, I think Pedro Porro is a good pick. Aston Villa defenders could also come into play. There is Moreno who's back in training, and he could get into the 11 very fast or very soon. Now that will probably affect Cash's minutes. And I know a lot of people are very heavy on cash, or in general, they're very into cash, into cash. But I think there could be a chance where he's probably, going to lose his minutes, and Moreno might take his place. So there are some doubts there as well. But I think Udogi looks like a good option at the moment. I think not a lot of people, or not a lot of players are expecting Tottenham to keep clean sheets. But in general, I think if they can, improve the defense. I mean, Romero has probably he's the highest scorer in FPL in terms of defenders right now, if I'm not wrong. So I mean, there is a lot of potential with Spurs, and I think. I mean, yeah, you could possibly not really go very wrong by going with the Spurs defender. With Sterling not selected by Southgate, I don't think the Sterling will be looking to pass on to scoring opportunity. I mean, you could look at that way, but again, Sterling as a player, I mean, we saw his solo goal, and it was an absolutely crazy goal. But I still feel when there are open chances, yes, I kind of agree to that sentiment where, let's say, if there is a possible opportunity for him to take a shot, and maybe there is a player running alongside him, and he's not seeing that player, he's taking the shot himself. That could absolutely happen. That's great from an FPL point of view. May not be great from a for Jackson, for example, because I also feel that similar to what Haaland is, I think Jackson also needs service. He's been getting service. He's been getting a lot of big chances. He's been missing those big chances. But I think chances will come. I mean, you have the likes of Chilwell as well, who will create a lot. You have other midfielders as well who will feed into Jackson. And I think considering his stature, considering his strength, I think Chelsea are going to play through him. So I think I necessarily don't see the Sterling Jackson partnership to be very defeating for Jackson, if you know what I mean. I think there is potential in general for Jackson. United fan without United players from Liverpool fan without Liverpool players. I mean, that's what happens in FPL, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of managers, I've seen a lot of players who play FPL having a certain bias towards, let's say, again, United, Liverpool, whosoever you support. You'll always have those couple of players. Maybe I've seen managers who are Liverpool fans who do not have Everton players ever. I mean, it's not that Everton players are right up there in terms of selection, but I think it's also the kind of way you play FPL. There's nothing wrong with having a bias, with having your favorite players in, because it just makes the game very interesting for you. But if you're a serious FPL manager, if you're a serious FPL player, I think you have to understand. Or again, it's not. I'm not saying that having no United is the way to go, or is the strategy right now, because you have the likes of Rashford, you have the likes of Fernandes, you had Luke Shaw, not right now. I have Onana, for example. Again, not playing this week, but I have him in my team. So there is potential in those players, but I just feel I'm kind of adjusting the way I'm playing FPL this season. I'm taking a little bit of more risk in the beginning as compared to earlier seasons, and that's where, I mean, after game week 1, my rank was, I think, 100k or something. Right now it's 1.2 million, right? So there are a couple of things that have not worked out. But I think right now I kind of see this as an opportunity to take a bit of risk, a bit of chances, also enjoy the whole process, and see where it goes, right? A lot of people play FPL, they have these 10k, 20k, 50k, 100k sort of ranks in mind. Since last season, because it kind of took a toll on me as well, I don't have an expectation or an objective like that. I just want to go with the right mindset, understand patterns, understand the teams, watch football, enjoy football, and then see what I can actually get out of that and translate that into FPL. So that's just how I'm playing. That's the reason going with players like a Son and Madison, because I feel Tottenham has potential. Went with Sterling after the haul, yes, but there is potential there as well. Sticking with certain options, like, I mean, I think I've had Mbomo from game week 1, where a lot of people weren't really having him. So let's see. I mean, just very excited to play the way I'm playing, and I think it's fine not to have those players, or the or players from the clubs that you support in general. I think it's absolutely fine there. What should I do with my team? Onana, Areola, Udogi, Saliba, Estupinian, Kabore, Chilwell, Saka, Mbuemo, Sterling, Fernandes, Rashford, Watkins, Haaland. One free transfer. Who do I bring in? I mean, again, no Spurs attacker is probably is where I will look at in terms of not having a particular player. I think Watkins Haaland is absolutely fine. You can take out, as you've mentioned, I think you've taken out, or you can take out Watkins and Sterling to Son and Taiwo Awoniyi. I think that's a good transfer. It's a risky transfer. I probably won't take a hit for it because Watkins and Sterling in isolation have a good fixture this week, and that combination may not, or may not have a deficit of 4 points against a combination of Son and Awoniyi. So I think I'll probably stick with Watkins and Sterling. I just don't see. I mean, if you want to take a bit of a risk, then there's Fernandes and Rashford. You can take one of them out and get in Son. Or in case if you just want to, in case if money is an issue, then I think of course you'll have to downgrade Watkins. But I personally won't do it. I think I'll just stick with this team for this week and I'll see what happens. Reassess in game week 6. We are looking very delicious. I mean, thank you for that. Is okay. So Salah or Son or Salah, Saka or Madison. I think Salah is a player that has probably not been spoken about a lot so far. I think considering the fact that he's that expensive, considering the fact that there are cheaper options like a Madison, let's say like an Mbomo, for example, Saka. I mean, there's so many different options that you can go for when you're looking at your midfielders, and it's just very difficult to justify that 12.5 million price tag on Mo Salah. I mean, it's not that he's absolutely taken. He's gotten a return in every game. In fact, I mean, he scored a goal in game week 4. He got an assist in game week 3. Scored a goal in game week 2. But it's just 23 points he's got in. The pictures have been slightly, yeah, you can say it's slightly tricky. I mean, there's Newcastle in there, there's Chelsea in there. It's probably going to get better, especially considering the run that Salah has right now. It's Wolves away, West Ham at home, then Spurs, Brighton, both can concede. Everton home, Forest home, and Luton away. Even Brentford at home could be really, really good. So fixtures till game week 12 look really, really good. If you're on a wild card, I think it becomes easier for you to get in Salah. You can just start with him right now, and then you can base your team around, Mo Salah. In case if you do not have a Salah, it just becomes a bit tricky to get him in. In terms of captaining him, I think he's a great captaincy shout this week. I think Wolves are a team who are again leaky. They are conceding a lot of chances, and I think Liverpool are still an elite attack. I mean, whatever you say about Salah's FPL potential, I think Liverpool are still or they'll still end up scoring a lot of goals, and I don't have any doubts about it. So, in case if you're looking to go risky, I think Salah is a great option. Again, my comparison here would be Salah, Saka, or Son, because I think it's going to be very, very close between Son and Salah. When it's Salah or Madison, I think I'll definitely prefer Salah. And I think out of those 3 options that you mentioned, I think I'll definitely go with Salah. Unable to afford Son in place of Mitoma by 0.1. So thinking of Rashford too. I mean, Rashford is definitely risky because Rashford can definitely do well. Again, that's an assumption. You might say that there's a lot of problems off field, on field, etc., etc., and that may result United or result in United not really doing that well from an FPL point of view. That can absolutely happen. But I think there's a risk. You can definitely cover the Tottenham attack. If you have Madison, see, to be honest, if you're playing safe, if you're playing logical, if you have Madison, you don't need to get Son because you can slightly cover off the Tottenham attack with a Madison. Taking out Rashford, having a good fixture, and then getting in Son with again a good fixture is risky. Again, taking out a good player for a good player. But I just feel I'll probably just, if it's Rashford, right? If it's Rashford, Saka, or even Sterling. I mean, Sterling is still sort of a maybe position, but if I'm having a Saka and a Rashford in my team, I won't take them out this week for a Son for sure. That's where I am in terms of the Son move. Hey Nigel, hello to you. Watkins to Isak. I'll probably just hold Watkins. I also want to see, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I want to see Isak, what happens with Newcastle, what happens with him in terms of his minutes in the Champions League, and how do they translate back to the Premier League? Whether Wilson is getting those starts in the Premier League now and Isak is preferred in the Champions League. All of these are unknowns, which I would probably want to address or want addressed by the next week. At least have some idea. And that's the reason I probably don't want to do Watkins to Isak. I think both have good fixtures, both have attacking or high potential fixtures where they can score goals. I think Watkins is absolutely fine this week. I have Johnston, Anderson, and Eze from Palace. Also have Watkins. So that's basically three players from one team and four from one particular fixture. Watkins to Saka, good. I mean, Saka, Martinelli to Madison looks like a better move, and that to Martinelli to Madison looks like a better move to me. If you have Saka, I think you've kind of covered off the Arsenal attack. You can also get towards the Gabriel Jesus if we see him getting more minutes, which I think it will happen. We will see him getting more minutes. We will see him, doing well as well. And if he's absolutely smashing it, I think we can switch a Watkins to his, to a Gabriel Jesus. We can maybe open up that third attacker spot as well. Those are different combinations which you can go for, but I think, I mean, I would not do Watkins to Isak for sure. I will probably, if I'm doing a move here, I'll probably do Martinelli to Madison. I think with Saka as your cover, as your Arsenal attack cover, I think it's absolutely fine. Your team is Ramsdale, Estupinian, Guardiol, Udogi, Chilwell, Bruno Rashford, Mitoma Saka, Haaland captain, Watkins, Benches Turner, Pedro, Luis, Gabriel. What transfer should I make, or should I keep it for next week? In terms of your transfers, I think it's fine. Bruno Rashford, Mitoma, Saka, I think it's good. Again, no Tottenham attacker is probably what's missing. In case if you wanna change that, I don't know if you have the funds or not, but Mitoma to a Tottenham attacker is one option. You can do that. In case if you want to stick with Mitoma, in case if you still want to see a little bit more from the Tottenham attack, I mean, you can absolutely wait as well. Joao Pedro is an option that you can change. I mean, you can also get rid of him next week. You don't have to get rid of him this week. Morris is a good option from Luton. I think he could do really well. He has a double in game week 7 as well. So that kind of gives you an advantage. In case if you do not want to consider that double, or you don't want to consider him as an option, I think Alvarez, I don't see Alvarez here. So Alvarez is a good pick. You have a Man City spot available as well. There's Guardiol and there's Haaland. So you have a Man City spot available. You can absolutely go with an Alvarez as well. So I think there is a move is not required this week. I mean, you can wait and watch, and you can see what's coming out next week and make a transfer accordingly. In case if you want to go aggressive, slightly more, I mean, you can call it aggressive. You can also call it, trying to cover off those Tottenham attacking points. Maybe if money is there, Mitoma to a Madison, for example, could be done. In case if no money is there, I'll probably just wait and I'll see how else I can get to a Tottenham attacker. Rashford or Son this week. Got Rashi in my team right now. Rashford, I mean, both are fine. If you have Rashford, stick with him. If you have Son, of course, stick with him. I won't do the Rashford to Son move if that's the question. I won't do it. Did you just get a haircut? I did get a haircut last week. Though longer hair were difficult to maintain, then was about 8 months long. Was having a lot of hair. I mean, there was some hair trouble as well, and it was just getting a little difficult to maintain. So had to cut them off, back to the short hair, and not very very happy about it. But yeah, that's what it is. Bruno Madison to Son or Saliba to Trippier or roll with one free transfer. If I'm doing a player, I won't do Madison to Son. Madison in isolation is fine. I mean, I'll probably do Saliba to Trippier if I really, really have to do it. But I'll probably just save here. I'll see what's happening with. I mean, don't necessarily have to see with Tottenham in general, but I think I'll see what's happening with Trippier, especially with those Champions League games midweek now coming up, and I'll probably reassess in game week 6. I think I'll save here. If I had to choose between dropping Bruno or Rashford to get in Madison, I think if you had to, I mean, so the numbers suggest that you should probably drop Rashford because Bruno has been so creative and he's been creating a lot of chances. He's been a bit unlucky. He's also on penalties. He's on set pieces now that Shaw is injured. So, I mean, on paper, you will say that Bruno has more potential. But Rashford, this is a big if. And you have to take this with a pinch of salt because Rashford in the number 9 position is not effective for United, is not effective for his goal scoring, and that doesn't translate into FPL points or FPL hauls. That's very, very clear. I think that's something that we've kind of understood by now. Now, if Højlund is starting, because I don't see Martial having the legs to start week in, week out. That's not going to happen. Never going to happen. But if Højlund is starting most weeks, I think Rashford shifts to the left. And that is when we can actually see him doing really well, as what he did last season as well. So it's a big if. it could happen, it may not happen. He may not translate the same numbers or the same form as last season. That could also happen. But logical move is to keep Bruno and sell Rashford. I just feel the way I'm seeing it, or the way I'm looking at it, I think I'll probably sell Bruno and keep Rashford. And yeah, and get in Madison. Yeah. I'm gonna play with my chicken tikka masala. I don't know what that means. Have Areola and Pickford. Bring on Leno for Pickford or save the transfer. I think if you have both, I mean, I possibly won't bring in Leno because I'm not really feeling Leno at all in terms of him giving us clean sheet points. Yes, he couldn't give us, he can give us saves, but Fulham are probably the worst team in the league for XGC. They are conceding shots. I mean, they're conceding shots. Those shots could translate into saves. That's one good point of getting in somebody like a Leno. He's not going to give clean sheets, and there is no possibility. I mean, I don't see a world where you know where suddenly I start seeing Fulham keeping a lot of clean sheets. So yeah, I don't see that move happening, and I possibly won't do it. I think Areola, if I'm having Areola already, I'll play Areola ahead of Pickford, and if I can change Pickford with a free transfer, I'll probably change him to a Vicario, for example. Maybe just go super cheap with a different 4-ish million option, or I can even just go with Flecken as well. I think Flecken from Brentford could be decent, a clean sheet here and there, and maybe some save points. But yeah, I mean, or you can just keep it as is as well. Mboma on the bench and Rashford out for Son. And what I won't bench Mboma. I mean, there is potential with him always. That he can give you a penalty, scored a cheeky penalty here and there. I think he could get you a haul. If you have to bench him, Rashford out for Son, I won't do it. Watkins out for Alvarez. If you already have Madison, you don't have to double up on Son. I mean, it's risky, it's aggressive. You understand the risk. Understand that they are facing Arsenal, Liverpool. Yes, it could be great for Son. Could be better for Son as compared to Madison. Those two fixtures in particular. But I think Rashford out for Son, I won't do it this week. I'll probably just see Rashford for one more week, see Son for another week, and then maybe take a call next week. Taking out Rashford, it just doesn't seem great, especially with the likes of Brighton conceding so many chances, conceding so many, or I mean, there's so much potential for Brighton to concede in this week, and I think I don't see a change from a Rashford to a Son this week. Diaby or Watkins, I think so. Diaby has a couple of advantages. The advantage is that he's giving you one additional clean sheet point, or a clean sheet point which Watkins is not going to give you. He's going to give you an additional point for a goal scored. Assist, of course, is the same. The rest, everything remains the same. I don't think so. Diaby is going to be on pens. Watkins, I mean, you can argue that maybe Watkins also may not be on pens. But from a structural point of view, I think considering the fact that there is Son, there is Bruno, there is Rashford, there is Saka, there is Madison, there is Sterling. I mean, there's so many good options in midfield, and there is Mbomo as well in the budget category. I just feel that it's maybe a spot that is being kind of wasted or kind of lost. Yes, there is potential with the Diaby as well, and he could absolutely smash it. So maybe if I'm changing, or if I'm thinking of a shift, Mbomo to a Diaby is, if you have Mbomo in your team, I think that basically is a better shift. But I think in general, Watkins is a better play because, of course, I can have those five preferred midfielders. I can play a 3-5-2 with Haaland, and then I can play Watkins in it. You could argue that Diaby is probably going to outscore Watkins. That could absolutely happen. But then Watkins also gives me an opportunity to ship him off to a different attacker altogether. And if I'm seeing, let's say, Diaby outscoring Watkins or playing really, really well, and if I have Mbomo in my team, I know there are a couple of ifs here. If that happens, then I think I can change Mbomo to a Diaby in that scenario. Otherwise, I can keep Watkins in. From a structural point of view, Watkins makes more sense. And the fact that there's so many good options in midfield, and I mean, Diaby, yes, he's done really, really well. I think he's still a good differential from an FPL point of view, but I think there are just better players with a higher upside, or a more explosive potential in midfield. I wanted Son, but too expensive, so I'll wait. I mean, yeah, you can absolutely wait for Son. understand whether he's playing in that number 9 role or not. Because if he is playing in that number 9 role, I think he benefits a lot. If he's playing out wide, it may not be the same advantage, or it may not be the same potential. So you can see him out for a couple of weeks, and then you can maybe take a call. I think it's absolutely fine. You can, and by that time, you'll also kind of understand where to take out money from. You can take out money from your defense, attack, midfield, whichever player, etc., is not performing. And those couple of weeks or 1 week will probably give you some additional information there. Start Botman, Estupinian. Safer is Botman. Slightly riskier. Estupinian, I'll probably just start Botman. What happened to your long hair? I cut them off. Yeah, was having a little bit problem there. Sterling out to Madison or Son. If I'm taking out Sterling, again, I think Sterling has potential this week. But if you're taking out Sterling, you go with a Son right now. I think the explosiveness of Son could be really, really huge. In case if you want to go with a safer option, then Madison comes into play. But I think if I'm taking out Sterling and getting in a Tottenham asset, Tottenham player right now, I think it'll be Son, considering how explosive he can be. Obviously, captain choice this week is Messi. Come on. I mean, yeah, imagine if Messi was playing in the Premier League, that would have been absolutely great. I mean, Messi would have been a default captain choice, maybe, or it would have been very, very interesting considering the fact if, let's say, if he was not playing for Man City, which is again maybe a rare possibility considering he's coming to the Premier League and playing under Guardiola. I think Haaland versus Messi for captaincy could have been a massive, massive, massive thing. Looking sharp as ever. Thank you so much for that comment. Don't lie, you're not exactly, you know exactly what it means. I mean, I won't comment on it. Captain Madison over Haaland. I think Madison over Haaland, maybe not. Son over Haaland for the explosiveness, yes. I mean, see, Madison also has decent potential. So in case if you don't have Son, if you have Madison, I think it's absolutely fine. It's risky because again, one of the scenarios in my head right now is that Sheffield United plays a low block, makes it very, very difficult for Tottenham to break them down and score goals. Madison doesn't create much. He gets man marked out of the game and he has a blank. On the other hand, Haaland with 2 shots scores 2 goals, and you're thinking, why the hell did you captain Madison in the first place, right? So I think anything would happen. It's just risky. I just feel it's risky. It's a week to go against a Haaland because of the fact that we're thinking that West Ham could be a very tricky opposition, and that Man City is not looking like a team who will probably score 5-6 goals week in week out. But do that at your own risk, or I personally won't do it. If I'm taking a risk with captaincy, I'll probably look at the likes of Salah or Son. But yeah, I think I'll just stick with Haaland. Should I take out Watkins for Alvarez? I think I'll wait for Alvarez for a week. He started every game in the Premier League, I think. Yeah, I think he has gotten a lot of minutes so far. Whether that continues or not, we do not know that yet. With the Champions League kicking in, I think there will be some more idea, or we'll get some more information in terms of whether he continues to play regularly in the Premier League. And I think with that information, it's slightly safer to go with Alvarez then. But in case if you want to go, see, Watkins for me is a hold because I've had Watkins from game week 1. I think he's a hold because of the fact that he has good fixtures now coming up, and I think there's good potential in Watkins. But if you feel that Alvarez is a higher upside pick, if you want to go risky, because see, ultimately we have to kind of agree or accept to the fact that there is going to be chances, or there will be a chance where Alvarez maybe gets benched. Right now, it's looking difficult because of the fact that there's so many injuries or so many players not fit enough to start for Man City, and you expect Alvarez to be a part of that attacking lineup. When the likes of Grealish returns, when there are other players returning in the mix as well, whether Alvarez start also with the Champions League in play, I'm not very, very sure. But it's a risk. And if you're okay with the risk, you go with it. It's the safer play is basically just keeping in Watkins and seeing what happens next week. I mean, I won't agree to the fact, or I possibly don't think that having 2 attackers from the same team is bad, or 2 attackers from 2 different teams is probably going to be more beneficial. That's not true. I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the individual player and how that individual player will turn out on the field. Having a Son or a Madison could complement really well because of the fact that Madison is more of a creator. He's going to create a lot of chances. Son can finish those chances. He's an elite finisher. Haaland and Alvarez also could be really, really well because whatever happens in that Man City attack, everybody will try to try to feed in the beast, which is Haaland, right? So Haaland is not going to create a lot by himself. He likes to, to get the ball on his feet and then likes to do different things with it, where he can take a shot, dribble past a couple of players, etc., etc. And I think that's probably gonna continue, right? I think Alvarez is a good option. He can score goals, he can provide assists as well. I think having Alvarez plus Haaland is absolutely fine. The only worry that I have with an Alvarez is the fact that there could be some minutes rotation. Now the Champions League, see, right now till game week 4, there was no Europe, there was no Champions League. There was straightforward games. Now with Champions League kicking in, and yes, Man City has a slightly easier group, so you may expect Alvarez to maybe get benched in those Champions League games and then start all the Premier League games. If that happens, if we see some inkling there, if we hear some comments, or if we read something in the press around that, I think then we have to jump on Alvarez. I think he's a high potential player. Should I sell Bruno for Son? I mean, if you really have to cover off the Tottenham attack, you can. If I'm selling one player who's not a Foden, for example, I think it's probably be Bruno. Though this week it just looks a bit tricky, because then again you're transferring out a good player for a good player. If you already have Madison, you don't have to make that move. It's a risky move. It's an aggressive move. It has high upside, but it also has high downside, right? If you know what I mean. It could go absolutely wrong where Bruno smashes it against, gets a penalty, maybe gets a goal, gets an assist, gets a massive, massive haul, and then Son blanks against Sheffield United. That could absolutely happen. So there is risk involved. If you're okay with the risk, you go with it. Otherwise, just hold Bruno. I mean, we can hold him for a week. We can be a little bit more patient. I think patience is a very you know it's a very underrated thing when we talk about FPL or when we talk about fantasy in general. And I think yeah, I mean, a lot of people, me, myself included, we lose patience a lot earlier, and I think we try to jump onto the next shiny asset or the next shiny thing, who's an attacker, a defender, whosoever. But yeah, sometimes it's just okay to be patient and just wait out the storm before something nice can happen to you. So I think it's fine to hold Bruno. In case if you want to go aggressive, you sell him and get in Son. Hey Zaid, I'm doing good. What's up with you? Let's see if you have a question. Start two, Mitoma, Colwell, and Mpomo. I think I'll start Mitoma and Mpomo. I think I'm always a player who starts the attacker over the defender. Scared of Mitoma minutes. I mean, Ansu Fati could get or could share minutes. It's not said, or it's not like a confirmed thing that he's gonna start. I think he's gonna get minutes for sure. Maybe start as well. Mitoma's minutes are definitely going to be risky. So there's that risk for sure. But I still don't think that risk is enough for me to bench him this week. It's United. They defensively have a lot of problems in general around the club. But I think I'll start Mitoma and Mboma. Both attackers, right? One assist, etc. Appearance points, and he could easily match Colville's clean sheet points, right? So I think I personally always prefer the attacker. If you feel that there's a slight risk with Mitoma, you play Colville, but I still feel I'll play Mitoma and Mbomo. Best differential captain out of Madison, Rashford, Jackson, or Saka. If I'm going with one, I think out of these options, I'll definitely prefer Madison. Has a good fixture. There's a good potential in him. He's looked quite creative. He's looked like the best. I mean, let's see what happens with Son. But so far, I think Madison has looked like the most in-place sort of player for Tottenham. Tottenham has not had a player like Madison in a long, long time because of the fact that Harry Kane was dropping deep, was playing in a sort of between that number 9, number 10 sort of a role where he was creating a lot of chances himself. He was dropping deep to get the ball and trying to, get that Tottenham attack ticking. Now, that's not going to happen because there's a proper number 10 in Madison who's going to play higher up the pitch. He's going to create a lot of good chances, big chances, for the likes of Son, Richarlison, Johnson, whosoever is playing in that attacking role. And then he has the ability to also score goals himself. So I think in this week as well, Sheffield United could be a tricky game. I mean, maybe a lot of us are downplaying Sheffield United's defense and them just keeping it very, very tight and keep them, shutting up shop against Tottenham. Could also happen, but I think on paper, the potential for Madison looks really good. In case if you're looking for a second option or maybe you're not convinced with Madison, then maybe you can look at somebody like a Jackson. I mean, Jackson, I like Jackson. I think there is potential in him. It's risky for sure. I mean, most of the options are risky, right? I mean, Rashford could easily blank against Brighton. Saka could blank against Everton. But I think if I'm looking at potential, I think Jackson has good potential, has a good fixture. He's gotten big chances, so he is getting involved. It's just that he has to finish those big chances, and I think that could happen this week. So I think if I'm looking at a second or an alternative option to Madison, I think I'll go with Jackson. Mboma has a hard fixture versus Newcastle, especially if Botman is back. I mean, it could be hard for sure. I mean, I'm not downplaying the possibility of Mboma not getting anything in this game. A lot of his threat also comes from penalties, and you can argue that that's not going to happen week in week out. Absolutely true. So if you feel that he doesn't have that right potential, I mean, yeah, if you're trying to bench him, I still feel I'd always prefer the attacker. I always prefer the attacker. In case if you are concerned about either Mitoma or Mbomo, play at least or start at least Colwell, because there is clean sheet potential in there. There is may not be that higher attacking threat. Of course, nowhere clear to or close to a Mitoma or an Mbomo, but I think I'll just come to the same conclusion, even if I think about it 100 times. Mitoma and Mbomo for me, in case if you feel it's Colwell one, then I think if I had to start one of Mitoma or Mbomo, I'll probably start Mitoma and bench Mbomo. Unana, Chilwell, Pedro Porro, Henry, Sterling, Mbomo, Saka, Madison, Rashford, Haaland, Watkins. Benches Johnson, Gabriel, Bayer, Mobama. Whom to transfer out or roll the transfer? 1 million in the bank. I see Madison, so there's a Tottenham attack covered. There's Rashford, Haaland. I don't see a need for a transfer, to be honest. I mean, you can play him. Yeah, I mean, you can play this team this week and then see it out next week. So yeah, I won't make any moves. Is Haaland the best captain or Son? Haaland is the safest captaincy option. Still expecting him to be captain by around 160, 170%, or having that sort of EO. So not captaining him and him going absolutely berserk will definitely hurt you. In case if you have the heart to go super, super aggressive, but also understand that there will be a lot of risk involved, and let's say it doesn't affect your sleep at night, I think you can go for Son. But Son is a good option. He's aggressive. He has a good fixture. If you just look at this fixture, of course, it depends on. See, we know Haaland is going to play in what role. We know how his positioning. We know what's going to happen with Man City. We know what's going to happen with Haaland. We do not know a lot about Son. We do not know a lot about his positioning. He is an elite finisher. He always tends to outperform his numbers, his underlying stats, his XG numbers as well. So there are a lot of unknown elements. There are a lot of risk involved. And if you're okay with the risk, all the best. Hats off to you. Otherwise, just stick in with Haaland this week. I think it's absolutely fine. If you had to choose one, would you start Henry or Estupinian? I think I'll start Estupinian for sure. Again, not expecting either to keep a clean sheet, but probably expecting Estupinian to have a better game against United. And yeah, as opposed to Henry. So if I'm choosing one, if I have to start one, I'll probably choose Estupinian. He's looked a lot more. I mean, Henry's also looked good in the Brentford attack, but Estupinian has looked different gravy when we talk about the Brighton attack. Sorry, he's been in the box a lot. He's taking shots. He's creating chances. There is potential. Again, if he gets a clean sheet, I don't know what the hell United is doing, but I think Estupinian in general has a good potential this week. I should mention I'm also starting Chilwell, Porro, and Udogie already, and I'm benching Estupinian, but don't really want to play that fraud right now. I mean, I think it's okay. Chilwell, Porro, I think they're good. I mean, do you have a double up in terms of Porro and Udogie? I think. I mean, benching Estupinian is fine. It's a logical move when you think about it, but yeah, I think it depends on who you are benching him against, right? I would always start an attacker over an Estupinian. I would always start Estupinian over a Henry. That's just how I play. the safer bet is to go for somebody like a Botman or a Gabriel, for example. But I just see that there is limited upside there because of the fact that I'm not expecting Botman to score most of the times, get assists most of the times. It's mostly going to be 6 points, and I can take that chance with Estopinian because worst case scenario, Estopinian gets a 2 pointer, but there's probably potential in him to get an assist, get something. And if it's a dodgy or a clean sheet altogether, I think it could be great. I have Martinelli, Rashford, and Diaz, and so who should I remove? I'll remove Martinelli. If you do not have Madison, it's an option. If you do not have Son, he's an option. Depending on the money that you have, you can go for a particular option. Which other captain do you prefer? So I think my captaincy preference or preferential order is Haaland the safest. Then it's probably going to be, if you have Salah, I think it's Salah. Salah, Son, more or less the same. Slightly prefers Son this week. I mean, it's going to be very, very close. Then it possibly is, the likes of Madison, Sterling, Saka, Rashford. I think those are the options later on. But yeah, in case if you do not have Son, if you have Madison, then it's probably going to be Haaland, Salah, Madison. Or in case if you do not have Salah, it's going to be Haaland or Madison. Start Guardiola, Gusto. I think I'll start Gusto. There's a high potential in terms of getting attacking returns. I think there is more potential in Gusto. Again, I'm still not very confident in Chelsea keeping a clean sheet. That could happen, and then Chelsea could surprise us absolutely. But I think Gusto is fine. I'm okay letting go of maybe 6 to 8 points from a Man City defender, in case if that's how you play, because that's how I play. I play a little bit more aggressive. There could be weeks where I could absolutely gain crazy points, and there could be weeks like last week where I think I went from 400 500k to almost 1.2 million, so 300% rank drop, right? So if you want to play safer, maybe Guardiola is the option, but I personally prefer Gusto because of the attacking threat that he can get, and I think this could be a good haul game for him. Double up for now, and double up on Tottenham, on the Tottenham defense, I'm assuming, and for now Colwill and Estupinian bench. I think it's fine. Benching Colwill looks, again, Colwill, Estupinian, logically Colwill makes more sense. Both have good fixtures, so I think between Colwill and Estupinian, yes, the attacking threat may be higher for Estupinian, but I think it's okay. I'm also going to sell Estupinian for share Trippier in 2 game weeks time. I think that's fine as well. Newcastle is a good defense. Traditionally, last season it was a good defense. Could be good this season as well. And I think, of course, we'll see some more, or we'll get some more idea when we see a little bit more games or understand a bit more from the upcoming games. But yeah, I think that's this very viable or sound strategy. Start Estupinian, Botman. I'll start Estupinian. Safer is Botman. Take your call. Estupinian has better potential in terms of attacking threat. Clean sheet wise, Botman is preferred. I'm expecting Botman to maybe score 6 or 7 points at tops, whereas Estupinian, worst case scenario, gets you 2. That's a loss of 4 points. On a good scenario, maybe he kind of equals Botman, but you're just giving yourself an opportunity to get that exciting pick playing for you and putting yourself in a position where you could get more points. That's about it. Son for Rashford or Fernandes. If I'm taking out one, I won't take out any, to be very honest, especially if you have a Madison, you don't have to. But if you are taking out one, I think I'll take out Fernandes. Still unsure about how Fernandes is going to fit in. Yes, he's creating a lot of chances. Yes, there's a lot of good potential in Fernandes. But I just feel the more explosive, if Højlund starts playing in that number 9 role, if Rashford shifts on the left, I think the more attacking player or the more aggressive pick is going to be Rashford. So I'll just keep my fingers crossed, hope for that to happen, and then I'll just sell Fernandes and keep Rashford if I have to, which I personally think I won't do it. I can get in Madison and Son. Who should I bring in? I can get Madison and Son. Who should I bring in? Not sure about the question. So you can get in Madison or Son for Martin or Rashford is what you're asking. So either of, I'm assuming, and I'll just assume that's the question. It's either Madison or Son. So I think out of the two, Son is more aggressive, more risky as well. If you're going for a safer option, then Madison makes more sense. Right now, we've only seen Son playing in that number 9 role once against an opposition who was weaker in terms of a defense, which was Burnley, right? Son is not going to play Burnley every week. So his potential may be a little bit overhyped, or you can say that his potential might be a little bit more in terms of what people are thinking it to be. So that way, Madison is a safer option. And if you want to save, see, Madison is definitely going to get you points because he's going to create chances. They will ultimately, result in result in goals as well. So I think safer is Madison. Slightly more risky, aggressive is Son. If I had one, if I'm going safe, I'll definitely go Madison. I won't look at Son. But if I'm okay with the risk, I think I'll in that scenario, or if I'm going aggressive, I think I'll go Son. Both are good options. Both are going to do well. It depends on how you're looking at FPL, looking at or how you play in general. If you're going aggressive, if you're an aggressive manager, Son is the one. Safer, consistent pick if you are looking for one option who you can hold for the next 5 to 6 weeks easily. I think Madison is the play then. So your team is Edison, Porro, Chilwell, Udogi, Mitoma, Saka, Buemo, Foden, Madison, captain. Isak, Haaland, 258 points right now. That's cool. Bench is Estupinian, Colwell, Steele. They know he will lose his spot. I mean, yeah, he was cheap in the beginning, but now he's lost his place, so it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I mean, it's a good team. Nothing against it. Madison captain is brave and liking it. Let's hope that it pays off for you. Onana versus Turner. I think Turner has slightly more potential for a clean sheet. I'm not expecting Onana to keep a clean sheet, though. With the likes of Mitoma and the other attackers for Brighton, I think they will take a lot of shots. They will hit the target a lot of those times, and I think that could result in some save points. But I'm not very confident of a United clean sheet, so I'll probably just say Turner, and that's what I also have done. Let me just quickly check my actual team as well. Yeah, it's Turner. Yeah, captain's Haaland. In goal, I have Turner. Yeah, that's good. Bruno, Rashford, Foden, Mbomo, Madison, sell one for Son. If I'm selling one for Son, I think I'll sell Foden. I'm not saying that Foden is a better player. I'm not saying, sorry, is a worse player, sorry. I'm not saying that he doesn't have potential, but all the options that are mentioned here, Bruno, Rashford, and Mbomo, Madison, they have good potential. They have a good fixture this week. And I think selling selling any one of them could really be, could be a huge loss for your team in terms of points and ranks. But that's what you're doing, right? You're taking off a good player, you buying a good player in the assumption, or with the assumption that Son is probably going to outscore the player that you take out. For me, I think Foden, yes, he's part of that Man City team. He's not a creator like KDB, we know that. And I just feel if he's playing on that left, he's not as effective. We also know that Man City are going to play in a way where everything will feed into Haaland. So ultimately, it'll be Haaland who's will scoring most of the goals. Yes, there will be other people scoring goals as well. We've already seen Alvarez scoring a brace, etc. as well. But I just feel there is more potential with a Son as compared to a Foden. So if I'm selling one of these options this week, I think it's going to be Foden out and Son in, and that's what I've done for my team. Very brave. I'm ready. Let's hope that Madison captaincy really pays off. And I think you'll remember this week for a very long time. Either way, I think that's what's gonna happen. Bruno, Rashford, important one for me. In case if you're keeping one, I think I'll keep Rashford. I've already mentioned my reasons. I'm expecting Haaland to play in that number 9 role. I'm expecting Rashford to shift on that left where he's very effective. He's not effective as a number 9 option, whether it's in general United's general play or in FPL. And I think it just gives him a lot more attacking threat. He has that license to drive, against those defenders and create those opportunities, score those goals, take those shots. And I think that just spells good for Rashford. So with Bruno, again, not very sure whether he's going to play on the right now, whether he's going to drop deeper, considering that Amrabat is also not probably fit to start. A lot of unknowns with Bruno. He will ultimately end up creating chances. That's definitely going to happen. And if United get a penalty, I think he's definitely going to score or get on those penalties as well. And that's the risk you take. But I think in terms of the upside, I think the more explosive option is going to be Rashford, irrespective of whether Rashford, gets a higher XGI or creates more etc. or not. I just feel Rashford is the more explosive option out of the two. Son's two, Son's next two fixtures aren't bad. They're tough, but they're not bad. Considering the fact that teams like Arsenal and Liverpool will probably have more possession against Tottenham, I think Tottenham is more likely to play on the counter. But they're not going to change the way they are playing. They're not going to suddenly turn, prime defensive, and they're not going to park the bus in these games. It's just not how the Tottenham manager plays, and I think that's very very well known. And I think they're absolutely going to go for it. They're going to try to outscore the opposition. Now, whether that happens or not, we do not know that. But I think Tottenham are very very clear in terms of how they're going to play. So I personally don't think getting in Son right now is a bad option. But yeah, in case if you want to see out those tricky fixtures and get him afterwards, also have some more idea information about how he's going to play, I think it's absolutely fine. There's a minute to go, maybe less than a minute to go. If you have any questions. So in terms of the lineup, so in terms of leaks, we've had information around Jota, that Jota is starting. Not that really makes a huge difference. Soboslai also starts, and that's where we are. But yeah, nothing else in terms of information, nothing else in terms of, I mean, we already know that Grealish, Stones, and Kovacic are going to miss game week 5. That's what we heard from Pep in the press conference. Nothing else. I don't see any other leaks that have come out or any material leaks in terms of, what's going to actually make a difference this week. Great, guys. That's deadline. We've hit deadline. I hope you were able to save your teams and lock in your transfers, lock in your teams, select the right captaincy. If you've captained Haaland, I think what else can go wrong? But if you've captained a player like Son, Salah, Madison, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I think we'll anyways get to know very soon in terms of what's going to happen, because the fixtures for Man City and Spurs are this is the 7:30 kickoff, 7:30 IST kickoff. And yeah, I think super excited, interested to see what's going to happen tonight. I think there will be a lot of happy or sad faces depending on how it goes for you in terms of FPL. But yeah, do watch the football, do have an idea in terms of what's happening. I think it's always helpful when you see yourself what's happening on the pitch, and then you can translate that thinking into FPL decisions. I think that's the beauty of the game, and that's why we love football and FPL in general. So that'll be all from my side for this stream. I hope this was helpful and this was enjoyable as well. I hope I was able to help you. I hope to see you next week. In case if you have not subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do that. Please hit the like button as well. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm as well. And of course, I will see you guys next week. Before that, of course, there'll be some content coming out, and you can always reach out to me in case if you want to see anything specific on the channel, on Instagram, on our blogs, or on YouTube as well, and I'll be happy to help. Right? Okay, then that's me signing off for the day, for the night, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.